Welcome to Finding My Wings. This is Jesse. I want to start off by thanking everybody for the growth that we've experienced on YouTube here. So I'm going to start making some cooler videos. Now this video is going to be talking about an experience that I've been having with my sign-FRS. I'm hopeful that my experience can help you avoid some of the situations and mistakes that I may have made and make some better decisions about how you're going to modify your car, if you're going to modify your car, and how you can do that responsibly and sustainably.
Okay, before we start, this is a big deal. This is not something that you should take lightly, and don't just take my advice. Go through the forums, talk to your insurance agent, talk to an insurance broker before you make any decisions or action anything talked about in this video. And I must urge that I am not going to be responsible for somebody going out there modifying their vehicle and saying, well, we found these videos that say it's okay. It's not true. That's not what this is for at all. I just want to give you my opinion on a topic that I'm not finding great resources for on the internet. And so this is something that getting ahead of it, taking it very seriously, and knowing that if you get in an accident, you hurt or kill somebody, or even just minimally damage your own vehicle that you put a lot of time and money into, that insurance can be a big make or break around whether that experience is going to have a good resolution or not. This is based on my personal experiences, my personal perspectives. Now this isn't going to be a fun topic. This isn't something that everybody thinks that you should follow all the rules for. And that's not something I necessarily agree with, but this is just my personal experience and informal advice. I'm not an expert. I do not work in the insurance industry, but I've had a lot of conversations. I've looked through a lot of resources, and I want to make a little bit of a summary, especially for Canada. And the other part here is that this isn't just for Canada. This is relevant for a lot of different countries and a lot of different situations. In Canada, we don't have a lot of good options, so I figured we'd make this video. So I hope you appreciate the information in this video, but take your resources, find more resources, look at the resources in the description here, and hopefully as well, comment, like, subscribe. We're gonna have more content coming for you. I'm based in Ontario here, I have a sign-FRS, so that's relevant to you. I'm gonna start showing my older British stuff here too, but either way, this video is for you. But find other resources. This shouldn't be all. But enough of this, let's just get right into it.
So now that we've got through that disclaimer, I want to give you a little bit of a summary about what we're talking about today and actually talk more about my direct experience just before we get into what's a modification, my advice, the resources in Canada and Ontario specifically for me. So as a context, I live in Ontario, Canada. And so it's one of the harder places to get modified vehicle insurance. Now specifically, we're going to be talking about modified insurance for a newer vehicle. And so just trying to insure a car that doesn't fit that 20-25 year rule of a classic or a specialty vehicle, like my 1971 Vauxhall Forenzas would be. And so on those cars, it's a lot different story. Now I have two 1971 Vauxhall Forenzas. One of them is a brutally original, amazing time capsule of a car that I'm very excited to show you. We're planning to make some amazing content about that car shortly. The other car is an amazing shell that was very well kept with almost no rust, which is rare on that car as well. Now in that blue car, I guess you don't know, that's my car that will be modified over time. Now that car can be insured with a different motor in it. It's not even a big deal. Like you can get specialty insurance on an older vehicle that's in that classic realm from something like Hagerty, specifically in Canada, as probably your best payout potential, best rates, best coverage on a super modified vehicle like that. Not a huge deal. Of course, don't take that fully as word, but you can insure that car properly. Now on a newer car, they don't fit those specialty rules. So what do? I've tried to do a lot of searching through forums, YouTube, websites, blogs, everything to try to really understand how to insure a newer modified vehicle. Now, if you've been following my channel, or if you want to go take a look now at some of my other videos, you can see that I didn't do too much to my car. Now there is definitely going to be more coming, but everything on my car has actually been approved except for 2 items. So you can go back and see the list of items and everything just on my YouTube channel if you're interested in that. But the 2 items that were not able to be added to my insurance or approved are my InGen X pedal throttle controller and my 20mm hub-centric wheel spacers. Now both are really high quality devices with good support, warranties, etc. They're the right parts, but they both add complexity unnecessarily and change the OEM characteristics of the vehicle. Now, the throttle controller was a big red flag for insurance. They've come back and said, no way, you're adding complexity, you're changing how things work. If you know or if you don't know, the throttle controller really just connects to the pedal and then back into the ECM. And so it's just in line between your pedal and the actual computer in the car. And it changes that resolution of the signal and it changes the curve of that signal. Insurance said, no, that's just changing your computer behavior. I'm okay with that. At the end of the day, you can do the same thing with the throttle controller as you can with just being more sensitive with your feet. Now, the spacers are unfortunate because they actually made the car look perfect, in my opinion. I really grew to love the stock OEM rims on that car with spacers on them. They looked great. They filled up the wheel well. They actually complement the car pretty well, especially on a dark gray, asphalt gray car like mine. But same deal, adds complexity. It's unsure. You're adding more points of failure, and it's really just unnecessary. So insurance wasn't willing to have that conversation. So both those parts, the throttle controller and the wheel spacers, came off of my car. You won't see them on my channel again. They've both been sold and hopefully going to good homes. And so I really just want to say again that we're going to talk through more of the context of my car, what a modification is, some of the stuff that's been done to my car. I'm actually going to take you through some of the options, the resources, how to search, how to make these decisions for yourself, how to plan out modifications, and all of this will be down in the table of contents in the description below. So let's get right into it.
So that brings me to some of the context here. So what really is a modification? At the end of the day, it's anything that changes any of the appearance, visuals, or functionality of your car. Now, a lot of these mods are not significant or serious. So little aesthetic things, like my little mirror visors here, our rain guards here, our TRD window stabilizer, not a big deal. They're not really a mod. Now, these things could potentially impact you if, say, this got in the way of how the trunk was moving and that hurt somebody, then this could come into question. So this still could potentially be considered a mod. But this is where that disclosure conversation really comes in. So one of the popular things that people do to, especially these cars, the FRS, BRZ, and 86, are intake, exhaust, tuning, coilovers, rims, tires, and a bunch of other stuff after this. This is a huge modification car, different bumpers, different everything. Somebody's done it, one of these cars. And so that's where things get a lot trickier in the context. So once you start talking about doing an intake, or exhaust, or coilover system, you and I might know that the parts that you're putting back on the car are really amazingly high quality. They might actually improve the safety and performance of your vehicle. But when it comes into an insurance company, they're often going to look at that as more of a increasing horsepower, increasing the odds and the rate that you could get in an accident. And when that accident happens, it could be more serious and they have to be responsible for more of a payout. So I'll get more into it just after this. But some of the potential outcomes here are if you do plan on modifying the intake, the exhaust, or even the exterior of your car, you really have three situations. You can be fully insured. You can go with an option that will insure the changes that you've made to your car. That's of course going to be your best case scenario. That's going to cover your liability. That's going to cover any damage done to your car. There's a situation of insuring your car as stock, doing the mods, and hoping they never come into effect if you ever have an issue with insurance. Now that's sketchy. There's some people that have good situations there where their mods weren't an issue and so they were never part of the claim and they get their claim and they get their payout. But there's also situations where people might find, or an individual insurance auditor might find, that this piece did modify your vehicle, and even if it wasn't involved in the incident, it could impact or potentially fully void your insurance altogether. And now the third option is, of course, driving without insurance, which is not going to go down in Ontario. If you have license plates on your car, you got to have insurance or you will be taken off the road. You might lose your license. Pretty big deal in Canada.
So now let's actually talk about doing these searches, making some decisions. The resources are out there, what I've found, and some of the guidance for you to be able to go make these decisions for yourself. So now, if you're getting to this point, you've probably already made some decisions that you actually care and you want to try to do things right. So let's really start with our very first thing. You search modified primary vehicle insurance, Ontario. What do you get? You get, well, first of all, this awesome article talking about how there's complications for a man in Ontario. And oh, look, he has a 2020 BRZ and he happens to use the same insurance company as me. Oh boy, I've started sweating already. Now, don't be too afraid here. This person, by the end of this article, you can read and go find this yourself. Again, this is on Global News, Canada. This person made mistakes. They didn't talk to their insurance company about anything. They didn't disclose anything. And so when it came up to an accident, they got zero coverage. It bucked their life up a little bit, and that really sucks. Now, doing some of the other searching, you can see I've clicked into all of these, and some of these are actually open in tabs here, and I'll talk about them. But you see that there is car mods and insurance, and you talk about it, and there's articles. There's even this government page really talking about modifications and vehicle insurance. Now, I first want to actually talk about one of the best articles that I've seen, which is this Zare Insurance Brokers, The Dilemma with Modified Cars article. This is an awesome read. Of course, I'll put this in the description below. But it really talks about this person's individual experience working in the insurance industry. They talk about JDM stuff. They talk about muscle cars. They talk about society influences, pop culture media, all kinds of stuff here. And it's a really good, comprehensive article. And they also do have a modified car survey here, which potentially will help if you go fill this out. And it's a little bit older of an article, but maybe they're still monitoring this. I don't know. Now, this is interesting because, of course, I read through this. I said, wow, these people really understand what's going on. There's limited options in Ontario, but people do it, and there's reasons to modify your car. So I reached out to Zare Insurance. And at the end of the day, I kind of got that they're not going to be able to do much for me. Zare couldn't find anybody that was really willing to insure my car. 2016 signed after us with very minimal modifications if you skip some of the other parts of this video. Yeah, hooligan street racers. This is exactly what they're trying to prevent against. But there's also this tuner car enthusiast era where most of us will probably fall. Zare couldn't find anything. I would still encourage you to reach out to Zare. They're a brokerage to really understand about your insurance, specifically in Ontario and in Canada here. But that's really where most of my experience came through. So we have the Financial Services Commission of Ontario really talking about auto insurance. And it really basically says that you need insurance, but modifications are a big deal. That's something that you're going to have to disclose to your insurance company. It's going to change the type of insurance companies that might actually be willing to insure your car. And it talks about some of the details and benefits, differences, all kinds of stuff here. So it's a really good article to actually get familiar with and find out about policy endorsements and how things actually relate behind the scenes to your insurance policy and how underwriters play into it, high-risk drivers, etc. Good articles. They don't necessarily really point you to any resource as far as trying to do better or trying to actually insure that modern car with modifications. So there's lots of these articles, and I encourage you to come through and read as much of them as you can. And you can see here where I'm starting to get into, and I would have talked to you if you skip some of the parts of the video here, that a lot of folks talk about that you almost get to this point where you're encouraged to lie, or lying is your only option if you want to have a full insurance coverage. And there are pages that talk about modifications, but you'll see this coming up over and over again. If you plan to modify your vehicle, call us first. It might be okay. The other part to come into is, of course, forums. So there's RX7 forums, H6 forums, all kinds of stuff, people talking about their individual experiences. And of course, if you have friends in the area, talk to them about their experiences with modifications on their current or previous cars. Now, I don't want to go too deep into this. I don't want to give you insurance advice. I more want to talk about the experience that I had trying to cover all my options here. So, some of the options that you're going to have, I'm going to run through just one example of really the three options that you get. So you have your big insurance companies like the State Farms, the Desjardins of the industry that are big. They have awesome payout coverage. These are companies that you can borderline trust. I'm not going to say you can trust any insurance company, but get it in writing, whatever your coverage is. So when something happens, it's in writing and you're not fighting a battle just to keep your car insured to what you believe that you're paying for. Now, I do insure with one of the big insurance companies, and as I said in previous parts of this video, I'm close with my insurance agent, so I had the opportunity to actually talk it out, understand what my coverage is, understand what my options are, and you should too. You should talk to your broker or you should talk to your insurance agent and really understand what the potential is before you modify your car. If you've already put a turbocharger on your BRZ, then it's going to be an awkward conversation and you might actually lose your insurance, which that's not good. But the process, if you're going to go through one of these big insurances, is so let's just use my muffler as an example. My muffler is rare, it's not in production anymore, so it's a little bit trickier. So what I had to do is I had to plan a conversation with my insurance agent and say, this is the part that I want to put on my car. And now I have to provide as much information about that part as possible. Now that insurance agent is going to go out, they're going to do a bunch of research, they're going to make a bit of a claim just for that part itself, and then they're going to go to an individual insurance adjuster. And that adjuster is going to say yes or no. And so the more information you can provide, the higher the odds of that person actually being able to approve that part to go in your car. Now, this is where it comes into that this is not professional advice. This is not solid advice. Every single part in every car for every person in every location, every single instance is going to be different. Even the person you get on the phone could be different, which isn't great, but it's just the realities of insuring a modified car in Canada at least. Now, I've been lucky enough, as I said in previous parts of the video, that all of my parts are actually approved right now. And so that muffler was approved. Now, the basis for approval was it did not add too much power. It was not over the legal limit for sound. It really fit in there with almost an OEM-esque muffler change. And my individual insurance adjuster luckily knew cars and understood that and my HKS intake were not seriously modifying my vehicle. They didn't seriously increase my power, and especially on a manual car. And this is something that Vice really missed in their article about how people only put loud mufflers on their car to be obnoxious. It's not true. In a manual car like mine, you can drive by ear, and sometimes that's the best way to drive. And so a louder car helps you really understand what the motor is doing, makes you shift smoothly, and really understand what your vehicle is doing, alongside with a smaller car like my BRZ or an older car like my MG Midget. You might not get seen, and so being loud is good. Motorcycle people will tell you loud is good for a smaller vehicle. So that's the process. Each part, individual quote, individual estimates. Don't have big expectations, so talk to them early, or you might be left without insurance. Now you get to Haggerty. Now Haggerty was willing to insure my car. They were actually willing to give me pretty dang good coverage, if I have to say so myself. And this is their 1980 and newer collector vehicles. So technically I'd submit my car as this. They're okay with that. But the big limit here was that they put a 7,000 kilometer a year limit on my coverage. And so they did take an odometer reading. And if I was going to be, say, hitting 10 to 14,000, which is closer to where I am, 14 to 15,000 kilometers a year on my current car, I wouldn't probably have insurance if something happened. And so that wasn't okay with me. I want to travel with my car. I want a road trip with my car. I don't want to have a limit like that. And so Haggerty is actually really great, whether you have an old car, a modified car, an exotic car, a collector car, really anything that's not a standard, Haggerty or somebody like Haggerty will do you well. And so that comes to our last third option here, which is specialty car insurance. I'm not even going to pull up any specific company. They come up and they die away as fast as you can search for them. And so you can find a local one, you can go through a brokerage, you can find specialty car insurance coverage in Canada. But the issue is that they don't stay in business. A lot of them go out of business, being able to not pay out their rates, or having too much liability in themselves, or having other legal issues that are super sketchy. That's the biggest issue with specialty insurance in Canada. You just don't know if you're ever going to get a payout. So if everything's done properly, they agree to insure your car with modifications, you put a turbo in your BRZ, you went to a specialty insurance company, they said you're good, it's in writing, and that company fails, or they're scummy and they have some subclaims that are hidden, they come out and say, you got nothing. Sorry. You now have $1 million in liability that you owe somebody, or your car is completely wrecked and you get nothing. That's a pretty crappy position to be in. That's where it comes back to something like Haggerty that will import right-hand drive cars, imported cars, all kinds of cool stuff. And so if you want to do it right and your car really doesn't fit the bill of just getting some approvals of each model in your car, then something like Haggerty or an equivalent company is really great. Specialty companies, do your research, really know what you're walking into, and get stuff very solid in writing if you do go with a smaller niche specialty car insurance company. So another big consideration here is track day insurance. Now, this is tricky. Technically, track day insurance exists from something like Stone Ridge Specialty Insurance for Canada. There's a bunch of other actually providers that will do specialty insurance for track days and things like that. They're pretty good. I think for the track, these are a great idea. They're something you should totally consider, especially if you're going to be going hard at the track and have a lot of money in your car or have a formal race car in any sense. And a lot of leagues and things will get into how to properly insure your vehicle, especially track-only vehicles for the track. Now, the tricky part is if you have a normal insurance company, you really probably don't want to get too into the conversation about track day insurance. So talking to my company, which is one of the big companies, it basically said if your car is near the track or on the track, your insurance altogether is void. So that's a big red flag. Now, this is tricky. With something like Haggerty, they're more open to it. They have programs that they're okay and they know cars will be going to the track, and they might not even be able to insure you for it. But with a bigger company, you're not going to get that. With a specialty company, of course, anything's really up in the air. So this is possible. This is something that you should consider if you're going to be tracking your car at all or quite a bit. But at the end of the day, it's a tricky conversation. This is actually somewhere where I might advise a little bit of caution around talking to your insurance company about this, or they might start putting it on your record. But of course, as always, early disclosure, to have this conversation early, will be your best friend, so they know that you're not trying to hide anything from them and that you're being open and honest about your car, your usage, your mods, and your intentions with their company, and so that they don't have any extra reason to void your insurance against what your policy says. Now, of course, all this information is going to be geologically dependent. It's going to be dependent on your car. It's going to be dependent on your driving record. I can't reinstate that enough. This is my experience. This is my perspective, but yours could be completely different, even with a very similar set of variables. And so I really want to talk about how to plan. Now, the biggest note here overall is going to be early disclosure. Have that conversation with whatever insurance agent you're using. They need to know before you do something to your car, or you could be left completely stranded with no option. So I can't hit that down enough either. Talk about it early. Go out, talk to a broker if you're not comfortable with what your own insurance company's been saying. Talk to a broker, tell them the situation, get their help, be forthcoming, be diligent about the information that you provide to them. Now, this is all your personal decision. As I said earlier in the video, there's lots of folks that will decide to just not do it properly. They'll insure the car's stock and do modifications to it. That could be a lost claim. That could be completely no coverage on liability. And then, of course, there's folks that just do really nothing properly and don't have insurance on their car and decide to street drive it and really gross stuff that I don't think anybody truly as a car enthusiast would support or endorse or be okay with. That's not good for you. That's not good for anybody that you end up hurting or injuring while actually driving your car. And so now, when you're actually planning your mods, so you go to subiland.ca, or you go to FT Speed, and you actually start going through that conversation of what am I going to do to my car? What can I do to my car? So now the big question to me is, am I going to plan to drive my car a lot? If I'm going to go over that like 5,000 to 7,000 kilometers a year range that something like a Haggerty would enforce on a modified vehicle like mine, then I'm going to have to plan to not do as much or accept that I'm not going to have coverage if I get in an accident, which is not good. And I would never promote that or endorse that for anybody close to me, at least. That's your decision, though. Now, when you're planning, all these things come into horsepower, really changing the potential for the vehicle to be going too fast or for you to be driving it too fast or for something to fail. And so, as I said, my wheel spacers, my throttle controller, both taken off the car. Fortunately, they'd never be approved to be put on my car and be insured with my current insurance plan, which is a really good insurance plan. It's very full coverage. It's a really good price. I have a good driving history. I've done driver's ed, all kinds of stuff throughout the years. So I have a good rates, good insurance, awesome coverage. Can't have those parts. Everything else, my intake, my exhaust, all the little things on my car, they're approved, they're good to go. And so I can't guarantee that that will be the same experience for you, which is why I recommend talking to somebody early and talking to them very forthcoming about what you're doing to your car. Now, things like an intake. Now, a cold air intake is this fully substantial intake that will be on the site. It'll say it'll add power to your car. Some of them will make massive claims, like 20 horsepower, especially on a turbo car or something like that. As soon as an insurance agent sees that, that's a huge red flag. Why are you adding like 10% of the power of your car back onto it? That seems like it's going to seriously change how the car is going to perform, and that's a big red flag for us as far as having to pay that out or cover that, or just the potential that you're going to be in more accidents because you're going faster. Something like an exhaust system, usually not a huge deal. Like a header is a big deal for power. If your car is a restrictive exhaust, it might be a different story. It depends on the literature of the exhaust system. Higher quality is better. Potentially lower power is going to be better for getting approved on a major one. Something like Hagerty, you go with a full header back exhaust system as long as you're forthcoming about that details and you get that approved before you put it on your car. And of course, again, not going to be liable for that. So go have that conversation. This is just my experience. But all these plans should be around just making your car better. So things like my throttle pedal spacer and my light and shift springs and things like that, to me, they fixed issues with the car had kind of from factory for a bigger person like me to drive it and have the car being responsive. So those aren't a huge deal, but you still have to be forthcoming about them. Putting rims on my car is actually okay as long as they're high quality rims. They're not race rims, as insurance companies like to call them, which I don't quite understand unless you're going with like a center lug, whatever. Those are approved. So I could get rims approved for my car, but I couldn't get spacers approved for my car, which some of you might find interesting. I kind of found it interesting, but at the end of the day, it makes sense. I'm not adding complexity. I'm just changing my rims. I'm doing that for the winter anyway. Car companies offer different rims from the factory. Now, factory parts is a whole different category. Factory parts are usually pretty okay to get approved. Toyota made it, Toyota sold it, Toyota installed it. That's okay. But again, you have to talk to your insurance agent because they could come in and say, why do you have a modified muffler on your car? And then having that conversation after you've already run into another car, not good. Not going to look good on you. You have lied to them. You've hidden stuff from them. Why would they try to pay out your claim? They're already looking for any reason to not pay that claim out. And so that's good. If you can get something installed from your on your car from the factory. So if I got like the TRD intake, TRD exhaust, the TRD springs, TRD rims from the factory, probably wouldn't have a big deal on my car at all. I don't even know if I'd have to disclose those because that's how it was shipped and sold to me from Toyota. But if you're gonna have those after the fact, same situation, disclosure, get ahead of it. Now, all this is your personal decision. I know it's not the coolest fun topic, so I hope this helps. I'm going to talk a little bit more about my personal experience with my car, where I'm coming from, where I'm going here, and then we're going to wrap it up. So this is a bit longer of a video, so thank you for holding out if you got to this point.
Okay, so this brings me back to my personal experience with this. And so for my Scion FRS, as you see on this channel, I'm not doing anything too dramatic. I'm not even doing a full cold air intake. I've just done the HKS Premium Suction Kit. Now we do have some other things that I'm going to play around with and see what we can do here with some parts that I've got accumulated and do a little bit of light mods and see if it sticks. But I'm not really trying to take this car too deeply serious. I want to make it look better, I want to make it perform better, but I don't really want to put myself in a situation where the car is not insured. I'm not financially in a position where that would work great. And at the end of the day, it just kind of removes some of the fun. The point of this car is that it's fun, it's affordable, it's reliable, it works in a variety of situations. And so with my mods, we've had the intake, we have the muffler, we had wheel spacers on it, which I did end up taking off for insurance purposes, as well as getting some vibration and some weird things going on there. Everything else has been really visual and just driver aesthetics, driver ergonomics focused modifications. So now my personal experience with insurance might be a little bit different than other people. Now, I'm in a situation where I'm really close with my insurance agent, so we can have a really candid back and forth conversation about what I'm doing to my car, how to plan it out, and what might be possible to get approved. So as I mentioned in this video, you do have that option to actually get in touch with your insurance agent or insurer and disclose your modifications. As I said, better to do that before you put it on the car, or you might put a 50 man hours of work into something, putting on your car, and be told that you're not going to be insured if that car gets hit or goes off the road with the normal insurance company. Specialty policies, of course, will be a little bit different, but early disclosure is still going to be good. So my experience was that I started doing some really light stuff to the car. I didn't really think about or care too much about the insurance aspect, but being close with my insurance agent, it became a conversation that came up pretty quickly, especially seeing some of my social media and things. And so we had that conversation about the parts that I'd already put on the car. And at that point in time, basically everything was already okay and good to go. Now I had to go through an approval process, so things like my HKS Premium Suction Intake Kit, and my Super Trap muffler, some of the visual things, shifter springs, the pedal spacer that I have on my throttle to make it easier to heel toe. They actually just went through an individual disclosure process. So each one I had to submit to the insurance company, they put it up to an auditor, and that auditor would okay or deny it. Now, right now, my car is fully insured, so all the parts in my car are fully insured themselves, so I'd get the value of the part and they wouldn't impact my policy if I was in an accident or needed to issue a claim. And so my experience has been kind of nice. To be able to be personal, to be forthcoming with my insurance agent, it's been a big asset, and that's something that I would definitely recommend for you. So as far as moving forward, no matter what your choice is, if you're going to be going with a specialty company that's going to cover all your mods, if you're going to go with a big company and try to get stuff approved, or if you're going to try to bend, flex, or work around the law and take that L, either way, it's good to disclose what you're doing if there's somebody involved that you actually care about. And so this isn't, of course, just for you. It's not just about whether your car's going to get totaled. It's if you hit a minivan and you kill a couple kids, or you kill somebody's mother, you have that liability on you. And so have that conversation early. We'll make sure that you're not wasting effort, and that when something does happen, that you are covered and you fully know what's going to happen and what to expect as well in those situations. All right, so really quickly, the summary here, of course, is that you do have options, but anything that you do to modify your car will impact your insurance, even if it's just my little mirror visors. Those are good things to disclose to your insurance agent ahead of time. And so there's going to be options. And the rest of the video, if you skipped right here, the rest of the video covers that. And so really I'm here to say thank you very much. Thank you for the growth. This is Finding Wings. I'm Jesse. I have a lot of stuff coming. This is a video that I've wanted to make for some time. I've actually reached out to my insurance agent and other insurers to see if they'd want to be featured in the video. At this point, we're small enough and it's a big enough liability conversation that they don't want to be. So it's just me here today talking about my personal opinion and what you can do to get ahead of these situations. I know this isn't a cool topic, and most people just decide to do whatever they want and deal with the outcome when it happens, but there's some pretty significant outcomes if you don't deal with insurance properly. And so I hope this video is valuable for you. Likes, comments, subscriptions really help us, help me be able to make better content, to be able to buy hardware to do better jobs, to get people onto the show here, to review some other cars, and to do some better, cooler stuff to this car, show my other cars, all kinds of stuff. I have lists of ideas that we're going to make gradually over time, and I am going to pace myself. I have a lot of stuff going on in my personal life too, so thank you very much. This is Finding Wings. I'm Jesse. Thank you. Stay happy, safe, and healthy out there.